Derek pulled into the driveway in a car that cost more than most people's yearly salary. And every single neighbor on the street noticed. Tom pulled in 20 minutes later in a 12-year-old sedan with a dent in the bumper he never bothered to fix. And nobody looked up at all. If you'd asked anyone on that street who was doing better financially, the answer would have been instant, unanimous, and completely wrong. Derek had the leased car, the renovated kitchen, the vacation photos, the new phone every year. Tom had none of it. Same street, similar houses, similar jobs, similar incomes. But 18 months later, Derek lost the house. Tom retired early. This is the story of why looking rich and being rich are sometimes opposite things, and the 5 quiet signals that actually tell you which one someone is. Let's start with what nobody could see. Derek's leased car cost him $900 a month. The kitchen renovation went on a credit card at 22% interest. The vacations were financed through a buy now, pay later app 3 different times. Every visible marker of success was actually a visible marker of debt. And nobody on the street could tell the difference. Because debt and wealth can look exactly identical from the outside. Tom's 12-year-old sedan was paid off in year 3. He'd been putting the same amount Derek spent on his car lease into an index fund every single month for 11 years. And never once mentioned it to anyone. Because there was nothing about it that photographed well. This is the part that makes the whole thing so easy to miss. A leased car and a paid-off car can be parked 10 feet apart in the same 2 driveways. And to anyone walking past, they communicate the exact opposite of the truth. The nicer-looking one is usually the one with the debt attached. The boring one is usually the one that's actually paid for. Nobody's brain is built to intuitively adjust for that. So almost everyone gets the read backwards, including, often, Derek and Tom's own families. Signal 1. Visible spending versus invisible saving. Wealth that's actually being built rarely looks like anything at all from the outside. It looks like an unremarkable car and a kitchen from 2004. The whole discomfort of this signal is that it offers 0 social reward in the moment, while the debt-financed version offers all of it, immediately, in the form of a compliment on your new kitchen. Signal 2. Debt-financed lifestyle versus income-financed lifestyle. Derek wasn't earning enough to support the life he was living. Nobody actually is. At that level, he was borrowing the difference every single month and rolling that debt forward, betting that some future raise or bonus would eventually catch up and cover it. Tom simply never spent more than what came in, which sounds boring because it is boring, but it also means Tom was never one bad month away from anything. Signal 3. Status anxiety. Derek grew up in a family where appearances mattered enormously, where a new car in the driveway was treated as proof that things were going well, regardless of whether they actually were. So as an adult, every purchase Derek made wasn't really about the object. It was about what the object signaled to the people watching. Tom's family never talked about what the neighbors thought. Tom, quite literally, never learned to care. Signal 4. I've earned this trap. Every single purchase Derek made felt individually justified. The car, because he worked long hours and deserved comfort. The kitchen, because the family deserved a nice space. The vacations, because life is short. Each purchase made sense completely on its own. That's exactly what made the pattern so dangerous. Nobody sits down and decides to go $500,000 into lifestyle debt in one moment. It happens one reasonable-sounding purchase at a time. Each one justified, until the total stops being reasonable at all. Signal 5. What happens in the emergency? This is the one that actually reveals everything. Because appearances hold up fine right up until something goes wrong. For Tom, an emergency could be absorbed instantly out of an account nobody had ever seen. For Derek, an emergency meant a phone call to a family member, or a new credit card, or hoping the timing worked out. The gap between these 2 neighbors was invisible for years, right up until the exact week it wasn't. Here's what actually happened. Derek's company did layoffs in March. Nothing dramatic, a department restructure, 20% of one division, and Derek's role was one of them. For most people, 3 to 6 months of expenses and savings would absorb this completely. Derek had 11 days. The car went back to the dealership within a month, repossessed quietly, at a M, while the street was still asleep. The kitchen renovation is still being paid off. On a card. For a house that eventually had to be sold. The vacations are just photos now. On a phone, Derek can currently afford to upgrade. Tom, meanwhile, had just quietly hit a number in his index fund that let him have an entirely different conversation with his own employer. Not "please don't lay me off," instead. "Actually, I've been thinking about retiring a little early." He wasn't rich the way Derek had appeared to be rich. For those 18 months on that street, he was rich the way that actually holds up when something goes wrong, which is really the only kind that matters. Here's the part that should genuinely bother you. Nobody on that street ever knew the truth. In either direction. Until the exact moment it became impossible to hide. Derek's debt was invisible for years. Tom's wealth was invisible for years. If you're judging your own financial situation by comparing it to what you can see in other people's lives, you are comparing your real number to their performance, and that comparison was never fair to begin with. So here's what to actually do with this. First, stop assuming visible spending equals financial success. In anyone, including people you know well, it tells you almost nothing. The most financially secure person you know might be the one driving the car you'd never notice. Second, ask yourself honestly, if your income stopped tomorrow, how many days could your current lifestyle survive untouched? Write down the actual number. Most people have never once calculated it. And the number itself, once it's written down instead of just vaguely felt, tends to change behavior faster than almost anything else. Third, and this is the uncomfortable one, look at your own last 5 "I've earned this" purchases. Not to feel guilty about them, just to notice the pattern. Because the pattern is usually invisible until you actually write it down in one place. Some of those purchases will hold up completely fine under honest examination. That's not the point. The point is noticing which ones don't, before the total adds up to something you didn't consciously choose. Fourth, if you're going to spend money to feel a certain way, at least spend it consciously, with your eyes open, instead of mistaking it for something it isn't. There's a real difference between "I'm choosing to enjoy this" and "I need this to prove something to people who genuinely aren't thinking about me nearly as much as I assume they are." Most people, most of the time, are far too busy managing their own version of this exact same story to spend much time evaluating yours. Fifth, and maybe the simplest one, build your own version of Tom's account. It doesn't have to be dramatic or immediate. It just has to exist. And it has to be boring enough that nobody would ever compliment you on it. Because the things worth complimenting and the things worth having turned out on that street to be almost completely unrelated. Nobody on that street saw either version of the truth coming. But you don't have to wait for your own version of that march to find out which one you actually are. If this made you look at your own spending a little differently, subscribe, because next week, we're breaking down the exact number psychologists say actually buys happiness. And the number is smaller than you'd think, and larger than you'd expect. At the exact same time, same honest stories, same simple truth. See you in the next one.